I firsthand saw how easy it was to just sign off on medication. It was a quick fix. Yeah. Medication doesn't fix everything.
Today, we've got Mr. Melvin Thomas, the founder and designer behind Mr. Thomas NYC, a luxury brand redefining how men and women wear confidence, craftsmanship, and class.
To be honest with you, Sean, it was the perfect storm, the pandemic. In creating pieces for people, I always ask them, why do you want it? I want people to tell the story that's attached to your heart.
And that's what we do here, is we tell people stories.
Being an artist, you would have fooled me if you'd have told me one day that I'd be doing this. Even today, sometimes like, I did that, I made that, and it's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I did make that. I was a psychiatric social worker in Brooklyn. I'm trying to convince him not to jump off the roof. I had two options. I either bail or I sit here and connect with somebody and try to save their lives. I was scared as shit. Imagine I had to go back out there and do that again.
Welcome to another episode of the Real Mentors Podcast. Today, we've got Mr. Melvin Thomas, the founder and designer behind Mr. Thomas NYC, a luxury brand redefining how men and women wear confidence, craftsmanship, and class. He's known for his handcrafted lapel pins, brooches, and statement accessories, and he's transformed what was once an afterthought into a centerpiece of self-expression. Each pin he creates tells a story, not just of fabric and metal, but of identity, taste, and the unspoken power of presence. Through his artistry, Mr. Thomas has become a bridge between style and storytelling, reminding men and women that true confidence is handmade and style is not to be taken for any shortcuts. Welcome to the show today, Melvin.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to be here. He was so blown away by that introduction that my team put together that we're gonna give it to him for all his endeavors after this, but I'm glad that Flo brought us together today. I've heard great things. Tell us first about Mr. Thomas NYC and what that's all about.
So Mr. Thomas NYC began during, as many people started some businesses during the pandemic. I wouldn't be sitting here today if you'd have told me that I would be doing what I'm doing now 10 years ago. Found myself in a bad place during the pandemic, home as everybody else, depressed, bored, not knowing if we were gonna return back to the regular life. And somehow, some way I found a way to keep myself busy. I found it as therapeutic as going to a counselor. Started doing art, fiddling with like little metals and pieces of stuff. My job, from 9 to 5, I'm wearing suits all day. And I used to wear these flower pins on my coats. So sure enough, I decided that I wanted to put something other than a flower on my jacket during the pandemic when we go back to work. I had this hope that somehow we were gonna get back to work. So started fiddling with some metals and I created something that I can put on my lapel. And sure enough, it became art. I started doing more and more of it. When we came out of the pandemic, when I wore it, someone noticed it. And it was that time when I realized that I had something here, because often you see men wear these flower lapels and they're not as striking as something that's personalized. Right. So what I was wearing was very personalized because it meant something to me. Not only that I crafted, but it was meant for something that represented the pandemic for me. And it helped me tell the story during the pandemic. So sure enough, I created the Mr. Thomas NYC, which is a craftsmanship for lapel pins and brooches for men and women.
Very cool. Now, where does this come from? Was this just a hobby? Is this something you've done? Because you say you had never seen yourself doing it.
No, like I said, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be fiddling with metals and being a jewelry maker or handcraft, or even as I'm described now as an artist, some people say, I'd be looking at you like you were freaking crazy.
So what was the inspiration? Where did it come from? Were you a guy who drew? Were you an artist? Did you have any tendencies?
To be honest with you, Sean, it was the perfect storm, the pandemic. Nothing to do, not knowing what the world was gonna come to, and just, plain old boredom. There was nothing. I mean, how many Netflix movies could you watch?
Tiger King.
I was watching
Chinese. Never got any traction if it weren't for COVID.
At all.
Crazy time.
So, after watching all these movies, I didn't find comfort in watching TV anymore. Right. And when I found myself sitting at my table, it was just that. It was just like materials in front of me. And I created out of everything, anything. Earrings, scrap, I had just bought my condo at the time, so I had all this construction going on and had to stop. I was using nails, anything you can think of. Then I found myself, like everyone else, on Amazon. I started, finding all this new stuff, machinery, if you will, like nail stuff that you can glue that I never heard of, just all kind of things. And it became challenging towards the end of it. And then the artistry I didn't know was there started to come out when people started to notice it. Oh, I want one. I like that. How do I get one? And it became like a timepiece, almost like a watch. I wanted to have conversation with people. So in creating pieces for people, I always ask them, why do you want it? Is it for fashion reason? Tell me your story. Tell me your story. Tell me something I can pin to your heart. And then we can get started on creating a pin for you. And that's where the love of me making them now. It's not about the money or, it's great for fashion. It looks great. It's detailed, but it's about the story. I want you to tell me your story, Sean, and let's get to the drawing board. Let's make a piece together for you. That's really what it is.
Well, it's happening because as soon as I fucking start talking to you, I'm like, I need not one, but two of these commissioned. And I already have some people in mind that I would love to gift them to. So that's a done deal. And I love the fact that you're doing it. You're not showing up like, I got these 20, 50 that I just created. You're literally building it out and creating something for the individual, like a commissioned piece of art. Bro, I still can't connect how we got here. What can you say? I don't know that you've given it any thought, but what are the inclinations that Melvin had to just start fucking around at a table and then come up with this idea? Was there anybody in your family that maybe was an artist, a creator, a seamstress, or this was just something that literally came from the heavens and
look, I love fashion.
Came through you.
I love fashion. Like I said, I wear suits for work. And always standing out was a thing for me. And this was just it. This was the one detail that I can find that separated me from all men that wear suits and women too. Generally, the projection that I was thinking was just for me. That's where it stopped. It was just like me wearing it for me.
Right.
When one of my pins finally ended up on TV, I realized that this was bigger than I imagined. Right? Watching NBA TNT, big shout out to Adam Lefkoe, reached out to him on Instagram and he saw my work and he instantly fell in love with it. And together we collaborated and made a piece together. So that was the business side of it, right? But there's still the artistry side that I never had. I've done many things in my life. I played basketball, I play all kind of sports, I swim, but being an artist, you would have fooled me if you'd have told me one day that I'd be doing this. Even today, sometimes like, I did that, I made that. And it's like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, I did make that.
There's gotta be a sense of pride in creating something and seeing it through. And then also taking a vision, making it real, and then passing it down to the person that helped you create the vision. That's a powerful experience from coming up with a concept to actually making it happen and making it happen out of materials that you pretty much source wherever you can. Now, are there people that come to you with an idea and they want specific materials, or did they give you free reign?
So that's where the business side of it started to become, right? When I made that piece for Adam, it was a solid gold piece, but I also designed the piece in collaboration with a jeweler, real famous jeweler, Tajir Diamonds. Big shout out to him. He wanted gold. Adam wanted gold. He wanted something that stood out. And not only was it gold, it glue in the dark. So this was something in collaboration with the jeweler, Adam, something we all put together. When you see the piece, you'll understand better. It's hard to really describe it. But it's not about the money for me. You can tell me, Melvin, hey, listen, I have a $10,000 budget. Oh, let's work on it. We can put some diamonds on an owl. We can put it on a horse. We can figure it out. The creation of the piece is different than the design, right? It's the story I want to hear. It's the story. Then we can get to the budget. I have a $500 budget. I have a $400 budget. Like Fat Joe says, and Flo says this all the time, yesterday's price ain't today's price, right? When you pay me for something I did, you're no longer paying for, something I'm doing. It's from the experience that I have doing it. Right? I have almost 4 years now doing this, and all the time and effort that I put into my craft is what you're paying for now. While it might be easier for me to do now, it's not as easy as creating the story for it. Right. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you say, Mr. Thomas, I want to create a piece that stands out. This is what I do. I'm a real mentor. I have a podcast. And I say, okay, I have a great idea. Just even coming here, I had an amazing idea of a pin. a little guy with headphones on and a short sleeve shirt from what I saw. And it would just be you, it's your story. So when someone sees that on your jacket, they're like, oh man, that's really creative. What is that? And that's where you say, well, I have a podcast, it's called Real Mentors. And there goes the story. It's not like, oh, that just looks fly. Oh, that's dope, man. You got diamonds on that. I want people to tell the story that's attached to your heart.
And that's what we do here is we tell people's stories. So we tell your story. Where did yours begin? Were you a Bronx native? Were you born and raised in the city? I know you're Dominican,
So until I was 3 years old, I have very little memory of living in the Heights as a Dominican.
Little DR.
Little DR. Then in the Bronx for the vast majority of my life until I was about 28. I lived in the Bronx. Kingsbridge,
okay.
Valentine. Yeah. I took my entire public schooling has been in the Bronx. I went to Lehman College for my undergrad, just a Bronx native. Now I'm in Yonkers, which is not too far, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's the natural progression to go north. When you're from the Bronx, we always thought we were going to end up somewhere in Westchester, and we ended up in Suffolk County.
5 minutes away.
Because the freaking business started developing there. So we were like, we got to follow the money, and we ended up in Suffolk County. But yeah, it was, you go from the Bronx, you go there. You're from Queens and Brooklyn, you go to Long Island.
That's right.
So it didn't quite work out that way. So you grew up in the Bronx. What was your upbringing like? Brothers, sisters, mom, dad? How was that?
I'm the youngest of 5.
Okay.
I grew up with both parents, mom and dad. They say that as the youngest in the family, you're usually the one that's the most spoiled. In my case, that certainly wasn't it. I was the most abused by my brothers and sisters. I was the one that got blamed for everything that didn't really happen. But it was great. I got 2 brothers and sisters. 2 are police officers in New York City. 1 moved to California, and my other brother is doing amazing things. That part of me growing up made me who I am today, being tough, right? Taking the abuse from my brothers, letting them walk all over me showed me what it was gonna be like when I was gonna be an adult. So now it doesn't happen. Right. So when my brother took my food that I wanted, or the cupcake that was meant for me, or when it was my time to take a shower and I had to leave because, my brother took an extra hour and then I'm all hediondo now and I got to go to school this way. I learned the hard way, and that's thanks to my brothers and sisters and my parents too. I am majority of the man I am today because of my father being a gentleman, my mom, pure Dominican, got her citizenship, when she was in her late 40s, but she definitely transitioned well from being a Dominican household mom to, being a New York City worker. And she's the love of my life, as I always tell everybody. I'm a gentleman because of her. I'm a tough guy because of my father, but I'm a gentleman because of my mom.
That's the beauty of the ebbs and flows and the energies involved in relationships. And, as you say that, I always like to, it's a broken record on the show if you watch it regularly, but the secret to most of my guests' success at any level is a 2-parent home. And the bigger the family, the bigger the community, and the more you tend to find people that are more grounded. So what you're saying is right in line with pretty much everything I've experienced on the show. Like, I would love to analyze the data one day and use a sample size to gauge how success is found, particularly from people of color in New York City. And, that's why we do what we do. So you were educated here, you grew up here, you decided to stay here. What's your day job? I know you wear a suit, well-dressed, you present well, you take, pride in your presence.
I'm an aspiring principal.
What does that mean? I caught you say that.
I'm a dean.
Okay.
I'm a dean in the New York City public school system. Hopes to become an assistant principal in the very near future, if anybody's watching. And then hopefully after that, to be a principal, changing lives in the school system.
How long have you been in the education system here in New York?
16
Is that
years.
a normal trajectory in how things work? You started as a teacher, or how'd you start?
So I was a psychiatric social worker in Brooklyn at Woodhull Hospital in Cumberland. I started there for a year. I graduated from school with a degree in sociology and English. Shortly after my experience in the hospital, I was offered a job to work for the Board of Education. And the first thing that came out of that principal's mouth at the time was, you get the summers free. I said, where do I sign? as much as I loved working as a psychiatric social worker, the stories that came out of that and the experiences that I had helped me become a better human from working in the hospital.
How so, if you don't mind me stopping you and just asking?
So my job was day to day to knock on doors. You would show up to your office and you'd have a list of homes you'd go to, unknown,
right?
Clients you've never met, and you just get a small detail. Not taking their medication, having suicidal ideation, having hallucinatory thoughts, all these things, and you just read this snippet, you go to the address, you get a driver, you go with a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I was usually the one who had to knock on the door because, psychologists were white, and they put me to knock on the door. And mind you, I'm 22 years old, fresh out of college, not knowing that these things are real. I used to read about them in books in college. So you knock on the door and someone starts asking you, oh, so the devil sent you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I'm from Woodhull Hospital. I'm here to find out why you haven't been going to your therapy appointment. And they welcome you to their home, right? And
you're like, this motherfucker set me up to kill me now.
No, I was in those positions at a few times.
Job,
I remember, look, I'll give you the most vivid story that I have. Within that first 2 months being on the job, I was sent to a home where an uncle had called the office and said, listen, my nephew was considering committing suicide, but no one came. Sure enough, we ended up going to the house. I'm sitting in a fire escape. This kid had to be at least 17 years old. He's getting ready to jump off a fire escape. It's me, the Hispanic, talking to a Latino young man and a white psychiatrist. She couldn't understand what he was saying. I had to translate for her, but it was a real life moment for me. My job was to translate for her. I couldn't stop and really think about what she was telling me to translate. And I was connecting with this 17-year-old. I'm only 22, 23 at the time. I'm trying to convince him not to jump off the roof. And I think his story was that his mom had left the household because dad had cheated. And at that moment, I had two options. I either bail, right, and say, fuck this, excuse my language, or I sit here and connect with somebody and try to save their lives. And sure enough, I was able to get him down from the fire escape, and the psychiatrist the whole time thought that I was translating what she was telling me to say.
Listen, Becky.
Dr. Dunn, I remember your name. I'm sorry to tell you years later, it wasn't you. It was the connection. It was the connection with that young man who was Latino. That's the part that helped me connect with humans more. It was a defining moment for me as a human being. I didn't know this man from a hole. I didn't know this kid from a hole in the wall, but I knew that I had to save his life. And at 22, having that sort of responsibility was tough. So when I walked out of there and went back to the office, I didn't pat myself in the back. I was scared as shit.
Of course.
Imagine I had to go back out there and do that again. Or someone who was a little older and looked at me like, what the fuck do you know? You're just 22.
Right. How are you gonna help me?
How are you gonna help me? Or what if I said the wrong thing? I was young at the job. I was in the mobile crisis team, and that job and that position I had wasn't given to everyone. I wasn't fully equipped at the time, and I admit that now because I was too young. I was unexperienced. I was scared of the position, and when I was offered to go to the DOE, I jumped on it because I was scared. I was afraid that I was gonna be put in a position like the one I was and fail.
Right, and then you see somebody die or take their life in front of you, or even put you in harm's way. My mother was a social worker all her life, so I got to hear some of those stories. And through the grace of God, she, never had any bad situations, but she was in a lot of bad places, and people would just look out for her because she had this good energy about her. And I'm guessing the same for you. God protects those who protect others. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on, and you have some experience in this based on what we're talking about. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on the mental health crisis that we're going through right now. And I say air quotes because I don't think it's a crisis of mental health. I think it's a crisis of purpose and focusing on the distractions versus giving yourself and your life some meaning and some value, throwing yourself into the fire at 22. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but you figured it out. And given the opportunity, I think 99% of people will figure it out. And this mental health crisis, in my opinion, not your words, I'm being very careful here, it's not even close to what it is being presented as. We're not giving people identity.
Right, but it's not new. It's not a new crisis, right?
Not at all.
When people talk about this, and part of the conversation we had behind closed doors, this is not a pandemic, right? The mental health crisis has been going on since caveman time, right? It depends on how you define mental health, right? If you're depressed, some people are lonely. That's a sort of, the way you define mental health is how I define the crisis. We're all in crisis, mental health crisis somehow. Now, the part that I seldom talk about is the medication part, the drugs part, right? Like the diagnosing. You can go to any shrink and right away they want to give you medication for any little thing. How do you know it's not just a freaking headache, right? And they're signing off of this. And I experienced this
after two visits, because they do have to do the ancillary visit.
No, I kid you not. When I was a psychiatric social worker, the psychiatrist, I don't want to divulge too much information, but I firsthand saw how easy it was to just sign off on medication. It was a quick fix, right? Medication doesn't fix everything, right? Some time alone does. Therapy, like what I do, that's helped me. The pandemic was depressing for me, and making the pins was sort of my therapy. It was easy to, drive to drugs or, these muscle relaxers. Alcohol.
Essential. It was essential,
right?
Bro.
Right. Well, yeah, but I'm talking about the ones that the doctors need to sign off on, right? Yeah. Listen, I indulge in whiskey every day almost, but seriously, doctors will just sign off on anything. And I saw it firsthand working in the hospital. I don't know if it was a way to, promote medicine for, certain companies or what have you, but it was just so easy to do it that why not just call it a fucking crisis, right? It's the simplest thing to do what happened during the pandemic? COVID-19, the vaccine all of a sudden came out. It was a miracle, right?
Right.
I didn't take the vaccine for a long time. I didn't get it. I didn't get sick. Then when it hit me, I still didn't want to take it, but I was forced to take it.
Right.
Medication
especially
is the
DOE.
And you were forced to take it. And I had no choice, but I didn't want to take it. I don't believe so much in medication. I believe in meditation. I believe in really deep thinking about what you getting to the core of what the problem is before the result becomes medication.
Right. You haven't, all right. Same thing we see with Ozempic. It's like we have a bigger problem than the actual weight when the fucking country is 2/3 obese or overweight. And just shoot you up with some diabetic medication that the side effect is
easy way out.
Who cares if you lose your muscle?
All your hair.
Who cares if your fucking face looks like a crackhead after a 3-week fucking binge? Who cares? It's a quick fix. That is the society. That is America. That's the quick fix solution that we're in.
The instant gratification.
Instant gratification. The Instagram world of and listen, social media is a tool, and we joked that me doing this is gonna get far less views than me doing something salacious or talking about a celebrity, or I could go to a fucking party in the city and get more views on some of my stuff, because that's what people want to be entertained with. But you touched on the deep work, the internal work. What was your inspiration for that? Was it post-COVID? Were you doing things like meditating prior? And what does a great day in your life look like, a day of peace? When you wake up, what are some of the things you do? What are your non-negotiables?
So I have the fortune and pleasure of having the summers off.
Right.
That's really when I dive into my sports. I love being an outdoor guy, right? Like I love playing tennis. I also love swimming outdoors. So a perfect day for me in the summer would be to wake up, hit the gym, sauna. I love the sauna, playing some tennis, getting some swimming, going to the beach. It's hard in New York City to go to a really great beach, but I'm also a cigar guy. So anytime I can indulge in a cigar and a nice glass of whiskey to cap off my day, that's it. Speaking to my mom, of course, is always going to be, at the top of my priority. I always speak to my mom every day, making sure that she's okay. And I think that, for me, defines a perfect day, connecting with my mom and, also self-treating myself to not only just physical activities for, to stay healthy, but also indulging what life has to offer, a cigar and whiskeys.
You also mentioned to me, big shout out to mom, by the way, all moms, single or otherwise, who are every boy's first love. And I love the fact that you're the youngest and you feel called to take care of your mom. I think you're the one. Like, I'm hearing it already. look at Marlon Wayans when you get a chance, the comedian from the Wayans brothers, and he was the guy. He had this huge family.
Big.
And he was the son. That was his girl. Like, he was mama's boy to the very end. He looked after her and all that. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's a beautiful relationship. The summers being free, taking care of yourself, it serves you. What are some of the lessons that you share with the kids that you dean, I guess, what would the term be? I can't say, that you look after in the school. What are some of the interactions and the lessons that you give them? And what does that look like? How does a young teenager receive a message these days? Because a big part of what I'm trying to do is get to them, get in their ear. The Real Mentors wasn't a podcast. It was Real Examples Altering Lives. And it was originally designed to be a curriculum, a nonprofit curriculum that would go into schools and teach them all the things that school never
That's
will.
Amazing.
Financial literacy, the power of dreaming and thinking big, relationship capital, all the things that I hear that I know.
It's not too late to come to my school.
Well, the invitation is always, basically it's done. All you have to do is ask. That's what I'm here for. The goal for me is to get in front of 100,000 people by the end of next year.
It's going to happen.
Any and all opportunities that you have to plug me in, you heard it here. We're making it happen.
It's gonna happen.
There's no mistake that even though you're here for the lapels and the business, component, that you're also on the Board of Ed, and I'm looking to do this thing. So, segue also, we're starting a Young Kings Club in Long Island, because I love the Bronx, is where I'm from. I love the city, but it's so fucking far from where I live that I said I gotta have 100,000 people. I gotta get started. So I'm gonna start a bunch of stuff in Long Island, and then as that gets automated, and I get the right team around me, then we'll move it into the city. But yeah, that's the goal, is to take what you've learned and the things that have made a difference in your life and teach these young kids. So all that to come back to the question, which is, how do you reach these kids?
So similar to you, Sean, you're an inspiration. Like, I'm starting my podcast. Well, I started already, but I want to see people of my color, my culture, doing what you do, right? So it's the same when you walk into the school system. I was at an all-girls high school for 9 years as a dean, right? A male Latino. And I was young, still young at the time, working there. It was hard to see a man like me of color in the position that I was in. I was at the time the youngest dean ever hired in the New York City system, right? For the Board of Ed. I was 20, I had just left the hospital. I was like 23, 24. Mind you, at the time I still had braids, still had long hair. Now I'm working for all girls high school. I was taken seriously because the position meant for me to be serious. And I had to have this frown on my face all the time. I had to level it down just a bit, because when you work with kids from our community, you have to show them, right? I'm sure you know this. You have to show them that you come from the same place. Right. You can't show them that you're better than them, but you came from that same dirt and ground, from the Bronx, from the welfare mom, from being on the line, from the cheese line on Grand Concourse, that you dealt with that and you're here for them. You have to be culturally relative, right? Talk about your household.
Relatable.
Absolutely, that's the territory. That's where it comes from. My dean was white. I could never sit down with him for more than 2 minutes. I remember my high school dean.
Right. Now that you mention it, I think all my deans were white.
That's where my impact comes. Look at this guy. And when I worked for 6 months in an all-boys high school, and having those conversations with those young men, and they're looking at me like, wow, you actually went to college? You did this? You play ball in the hood? You came from where? Those small conversations, whether they were 2 or 3 minutes, impacted those kids, because I made myself so relatable that they would open up conversations about what was going on at home. It would drop the wall, that defense. That, these kids come with a big wall, and if you don't get to their heart through being relative of who you are, being a human, you're never going to break down that wall. And I found that if a man from the Bronx, and you know this, we don't get a lot of opportunities to be in these kind of positions. And when I got it and I realized how much impact I was gonna have, I said, oh no, I gotta stay in this position, because there's a lot of kids that gonna come past me, and I have to change those lives. I was that kid at one point. Right. I was that 15-year-old who wanted to do drugs. I was that 13-year-old who cut school. I was that 12-year-old who had a brother or sister who's got molested. I wanna hear these stories, because I wanna be able to talk about my experiences and how I adjusted. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy. I work with K to 8 now, so it's a little more parenting, more at this
It's
grade.
Still kids.
It's still
innocence.
kids. Correct. A lot of innocence. But when I worked with the high school and those young ladies and the boys, it made a big difference. I felt like my impact was instant, more, and you saw the rewards sooner when they graduated, when they were in college, when you run into them in places.
Right. As opposed to a kid, which they can still go any which way, like a younger kid.
Correct.
Wow, that's powerful because there's so many parallels, but I always equate it to like planting a seed, right? And I use, obvious is a seed in a tree or a plant, and that, takes a year or months to grow out of the ground. But there's these animals, cicadas, those fucking noisy at night during the summer, right? So those things are hatched in the ground and may or may not hatch as many as 17 years later. And that's what I equate to people like yourself and myself planting a seed, an idea, another outcome that they maybe haven't even explored. And I feel called and I feel it's our fucking duty that if we make it out to come back and do something. I understand that it takes your energy and you have other things, so maybe not everybody has the same level to give, but give something, because you are, even if you're just getting by with a steady job and you're supporting your family, maybe you didn't have that. Your family was on welfare, and by going to high school, going to community college, going there, learning one lesson, being consistent, staying disciplined, finding a job, getting a pension, it lifted your family to a place where now they can dream. Like maybe you didn't have the luxury to dream.
Yep.
But you set your kids up. And if you're aware enough, you won't step on their dreams. But even by providing a steady living and you're not conscious of dreams and how those work, you still have given them at least a better platform to level up from. So what are some of the things that you think we can do in our community to strengthen some of the things we just discussed?
Well, exactly what you're doing now. Look, this sort of meeting could turn into a collaboration, bring you to the school. A powerful Latino man like you, such a powerful voice with the audience, the platform that you have. We need to get involved. We need to get in there. We need to get into the trenches. I tell this people all the time. I'm not just talking about going to church on Sundays and trying to find a kid to mentor. I'm talking about go to the park, go play ball, go find some kids that you see regularly. Go to find these places where our children are, right? Now, when I say children, I'm talking about, 14, 15, 16. I also teach basketball, right? One-on-one, small groups, and I do that for fun. I do that through the Omari Lawrence Foundation. And I find that as another way of just me also connecting with kids. I love playing ball. So why not? I play basketball. I'm also able to talk to the kids. And if I can connect them to some sort of internship, help them through their college application process, where their parents didn't go to college. They don't even know what it looks like. They don't know what a financial aid paper looks like. They wouldn't even know where to sign. They don't even know what taxes look like because they've never paid taxes.
Yeah, crazy.
Finding those places, right? They're everywhere. They're across the street. They're not in bars, right? I'm not going to find, I've found some of my previous students in bars. That's awkward. But finding those places, Sean, you got to find those places and take the initiative, right? Don't wait for the opportunity to come to you. Go out there, look for it. Right. And we all, when I say we, I mean, particularly men, right? I work in a school system. And if I told you that, and you mentioned this earlier, if I told you that 30% of my kids come from a two-parent household, would that surprise you?
30, just 30. No, that's probably.
So it's us.
Wow, it's 30%, bro? Where's the school you teach at? Brooklyn? Or?
I'm in Spanish Harlem.
Spanish Harlem, so mostly Latino and Moreno and African-American. I was just talking to some friends that were on the show earlier about the dynamic of African-Americans and Puerto Ricans. Dominicans a little different because it came a little later, but I grew up in the projects where it was mostly African-American, a lot of Puerto Ricans and some poor whites that couldn't get out because they couldn't afford to get out, right? My neighbors were actually Jewish and Italian.
Oh, wow.
When we came in the early 80s, and then crack came and free base and all, they were like, we out. Like, it's not safe enough.
Some stayed
because they couldn't get out. I remember this one family in particular that was there a little too long. And they were the odd people out. It would be like being the black guy in a white neighborhood. They were the ones that stood out and sometimes taken advantage of or whatever because they didn't fit in. It wasn't their neighborhood anymore, you know what I mean? And things changed. But I say all that to say that I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. And I just feel like the fact that shit is 30% is fucking disgusting.
And in some schools, even worse. I came, listen.
Yeah, if you went to, somewhere in like the South Bronx, let's just say where we're shooting right now, I would imagine those demographics are even less impressive.
So going back to your question, circling back, when I say we, I mean men like you and I, Latino men in positions with platforms, who are well educated, not just in school, institutionalized education, but in the streets, right? We came from the ghetto. We came from the hood.
Right.
I know I certainly did.
Right.
We can go back there to those community centers. I grew up going to the Boys and Girls Club. That's where I found my first mentor. That's where I was, when the first man took me to church, he worked in the Boys and Girls Club, took me to his home. You know, there were so many people in a position to lead and inspire me that somehow I feel like we've lost that. And I think like men like you and I need to do that again. Go back and figure it out. Where do we need to find the kids that need the support? Where are the kids that need mentors, who don't have fathers, who you see driving down, go down to 3rd Avenue on a Saturday night, you see these 14 and 15-year-olds just chilling out there in the street with nowhere and nothing to do. You think my father would let me be outside at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday on Valentine Avenue? I'm sure hell no, your father wouldn't.
No. I didn't have one, but my mother wouldn't. My mom got me out of the street a couple of times.
But it's hard for just a single mom, right?
It was hard. She physically had to come take me and get my ass out of the park with my little brother. She called the neighbor, like, watch Andre. I gotta go get this motherfucker out the seat before they take him from me because they will take you from your parents or your mom.
And back in the day, it was no ACS, right? You get that ass whooping. Nobody coming to save you. No, they got so many agencies now.
There was a well-deserved ass whipping, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
I struggle with that, man. I struggle with it because the ass whippings kept me in line. I'm sure that at some point they were out of frustration too. If we're being 100%, they may have been, you're not gonna fucking test me today, kid.
Right.
And you're gonna get an ass.
You don't realize that till years later.
You don't realize it till you're a parent.
You're like,
shit. You wouldn't have made it in the 80s, girl. They would have killed your ass. But again, generational progress, surrounding myself with people who are healthy, at peace, have amazing families, and still get to make a lot of money and impact a lot of lives. And again, if you haven't seen it, why would you think it's available to you? So yes, you're absolutely right. Men like yourself, men like myself, we are living proof that it can be done. And even I struggle with it because what I want to do is so lofty and so unfamiliar and so scary that I had to leave this community to go seek out what I wanted to because it's not here. You see all these buildings that are here now in the South Bronx?
They're pushing.
We didn't fucking build those,
no,
unfortunately. And we're still a generation or two from having contracts and know-how and fucking deep pockets to build buildings. If you looked at developers, right, like with 30% single mothers in the hood, if you looked at developers, it's like 0.3% people of color probably.
Not even that.
In New York City. But again, generational progress, I always say, there's no group of people that's any more special than a group. It's the immigrant mentality. And what I say to everybody now, especially with everything in the news and migrants and all this, we need as Americans to have more of an immigrant mentality. Because the reason that we're losing is because we're fucking lazy as Americans. Now, you were born here, correct?
Yes.
Your parents weren't. They came with a certain culture, a certain work ethic, they passed it down, and then their culture gets watered down into the American culture. That's what American culture is.
My father was a bodeguero. My father was a bodeguero, like literally a bodeguero.
And for those of you who don't know what a bodeguero is, it's a guy who owns a bodega, AKA a corner grocery store in the hood.
And I was the kid that went in there and ate all the freaking candy and get the ass whooping. It's like you said, right? We have these generational curses, so to speak, right?
I'd rather call them obstacles.
Obstacles, right? And that's what it boils down to. They don't have to necessarily be curses, right? They're obstacles, but you choose to have them, right? You can penetrate through all that. I did. My brothers and sisters did. My brother's a New York State trooper. My sister's NYPD. I have another sister who's doing amazing things in California with a form in men in prison. We came from that, from parents who were immigrants. My father was a bodeguero. My mom barely spoke any English, and she started working for New York City. We're the story that supposed to be told so kids that are living it can believe that they can.
Right.
You too, right. Sean, you have, and I in conversation with you briefly there, you have that gift. Right. You know, you have that gift. You're very inspirational. I had the privilege of listening to some of your podcasts when I first started following you a few weeks ago. And I'm like, man, I got to meet this guy. You know, you're inspiring to me. If you don't stop being inspired, you stop inspiring as well. Right. So this platform that you have is one way of doing it. You know, it's harder for some. I don't have any kids, right? I'd say there's a luxury. So
you got a lot of kids. There's other people's kids.
Yeah, I have other people's kids.
And you can return them at 3 o'clock.
That's the gift, right? Like, here you go, you can take it back. But that's not enough for me. Like, it doesn't stop there, because a lot of the stuff I do now becomes more administrative. I get somehow disconnected to the kids, even though somehow I always find a way to get back to the kids. But outside the school building is where I have to find where I'm going to have impact as well, not just in the school system. And I think that, you know, your platform will help do that. You have a gift, and I want to exploit that gift in the future, bringing you to my schools and kids that I work with. But we have to keep inspiring, man.
Well, you heard it here. We're collaborating. It's happening. It's just happening, period, the end. So listen, I want to thank you again. If you don't mind telling our audience how they can find you on social, how they can find more about your brand, and let them know what you got next.
So Mr. Thomas, Mr. NYC on Instagram. And you could also follow my podcast that started last week. It's What's the Deal with Mr. Thomas? YouTube channel is already up and running. Episodes are being released as early as next week.
Awesome. So you heard it here. Make sure you go out and support Mr. Thomas. Check out some of those lapels, brooches for men and ladies. Absolute stunning gifts, creative, thoughtful, and just something unique that can last the test of time, and you can pass down maybe to even your kids or your loved ones. So we're not talking about something just for style here. We're talking about something thoughtful and curated just for you. I'm definitely picking up at least one, but I've got a couple of people in mind.
There's a waiting list.
Oh, fuck. So I gotta wait for mine, but either way, I'm getting on that waiting list. I suggest you do the same. We're gonna have all of Melvin's info in the bio. Thank you, as always, for tuning into the Real Mentors podcast, and you already know, let's get it.